Good evening. Welcome to City Council meeting for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2015. Could I have the roll call, please?
Salem Derby.
Present.
Dan Hagan.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes.
Here.
JP Kozinski.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
Joy Winnie.
Here.
Nathan Ziegler.
Here.
We all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for the approval of the minutes
So
of
moved.
August 5th? Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of August 5th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, motion still passes. Public speak time. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to address the council for something other than what's on the public hearings, please come to the podium and state your name. Okay, not seeing any. There is no communication from elected officials, correspondence, mayor communications, Mayor Cadger.
Hi, I'll keep it brief. Our auditor just finished up today. She just finished up the 2015 municipal school spending report. So I thought you would like to, everyone have a copy. Barbara, I have one for each one of the counselors and I'll give you yours tomorrow, okay? Yep. So I just figured that, you know, hot off the press, you could be, have the time to review it. Thank you.
Okay, standing committees, Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Rist.
Yes, Mr. President, the Rules Committee will meet on Tuesday, September 15th, in Room 1 at 6 p.m. to discuss the administrative code request, the name change of the ECA Plus Subcommittee to ECA Grants Committee. And as I said, we'll meet in Room 1. I'd also like to make a motion for a public hearing on the administrative code change I just mentioned for next meeting, which is the 16th of September at 6:15 in these chambers.
Okay, is there a
Need a
second?
second.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to set a public hearing for September 16th concerning the Administrative Code 15-4, the name changing of ECA Plus to ECA Grants Committee. Additional comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
Okay. Finance, Councilor Hagan.
There'll be no finance subcommittee next week, assuming we take care of all our business tonight. There are two items I'd like to take care of now. They were reviewed at our last subcommittee meeting. The first is a request to rescind the two past borrowing authorizations. This was our, where we always have to put up the authorization to borrow, but hopefully don't ever have to borrow. And it involved the promenade and the park. So we never borrowed. I don't believe anything was borrowed. It was just set up there to match, or if the state grants fell through, but they didn't. So if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion. I'd move to rescind the following borrowing authorizations as the projects are complete and no additional borrowing is needed for these items. Nashawanic Pond Promenade, $440,000, and Park, $195,000.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to rescind the two past borrowing authorizations for the promenade and the park. Any additional comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Our second item I'd like to take up before the public hearings is the request to dissolve the kennel donation account and move the proceeds to the Hayden Animal Trust Fund, which is also a city account. This was discussed also in subcommittee, and the mayor may want to speak on to this one. This, I believe, the kennel donation account had been around for many years. It was a project in the schools, I believe, by a former teacher, Deb Smith, and they raised quite a bit of money, or had hoped to, $4,000, a little over $4,000, hopefully to build a kennel or help build a kennel. And now that we've moved to moving the services out of East Hampton, the mayor has no plans to build a kennel. So and I believe the mayor could speak to talking to Deb Smith, but I believe it was her understanding that she'd like to move this fund to the Hayden Fund, which is a fund that is also a city account, that if animals are hurt, they come out and take care of the animal, and if the person can't pay, I believe there's a $50 stipend that goes to the, if you would.
Thank you. We had a lot of conversations with Deb over the last few years, especially recently, and we spent a lot of time talking with her and discussing it with her, and what the best use that she feels, her students, and there was actually other teachers and administrators involved in raising the funds, and she's checked with all of them, and we've had meetings together, and she's viewed the Westfield Animal Control Services, and they all agree that they would like to, put the funds for injured animals. Now, as Councilor Hagan stated, we do have the Dr. Hayden Animal Fund. That doesn't necessarily. There were a couple of restrictions or requests that Deb wanted to put on it. One was that it's only for dogs, and it's only for East Hampton dogs. Does not mean they need to be medically treated in East Hampton. There's other veterinarian services, but that was her request, and that was the consensus of the four of them. And we were asked. I don't know if it was it you, JP, that asked about maybe getting a letter from her?
That was my request.
Yeah,
if possible.
so I talked to her about it, and she said no problem at all. And I noticed that I hadn't received anything, so she said that something will be forthcoming today, which is probably coming through as we're up here. But those were the only restrictions that. The other thing is it's a little over the $4,000. And sometimes when trusts are started, you can only use the interest, and she felt that would be foolish. So she wanted to make sure that the whole amount could be used, because obviously the interest on that wouldn't be very much, wouldn't pay very much of any type of medical bill. So I didn't know if anyone had any specific questions.
Mayor, as I recall our conversation, while she wanted this used specifically for dogs and injured dogs, there is other money in the Hayden Fund, so if like a cat is injured, they still can come out and use it. Would just be taking other money that's in that fund as
That's
opposed to this
absolutely-
money that's going to be.
That's absolutely correct. And and again, you also know that we have services through Westfield Animal Control for our dogs now, and we have been treating, if the police get a call in the middle of the night of an injured cat, that's also treated, yes.
And I'm glad you passed out this.
I passed out. How long was I
Yeah,
out?
exactly. For the information on the Hayden Animal Trust Fund, and it goes all the way back to 1986, and a lot of it has kind of been outdated.
Right.
Like they mentioned that the designation of the officer, the funding would be by the dog officer, I believe, and there's references to a select boards, and also the money at that time was $50, which in today's seems to be inappropriate. So I think I had mentioned to you that we'll resubmit this and try to bring it up a little bit, because I think it's a little bit outdated.
Right, I agree.
But of course, all you passed out, I can't remember what I was going to say. But I'm sure it was very important. Wasn't about
That you'd like to update.
Yeah, we're gonna update
Yeah,
this.
definitely needs some updating, seeing how it,
Oh yeah, I know. So the way this money is used, this isn't like you take your dog. I'm sorry, take your dog in for a spay and you can ask for money. This is like
Right.
in the middle of the night, emergency. We need to stabilize the animal kind of money. Is that the
right,
situation? Okay.
right, or, or an emergency situation.
Right.
And, and unfortunately, the money isn't going to, last forever.
Right.
4,000 in these medical times isn't a lot.
Right.
So, but yes, it could be used for that.
Okay. Great. That's all my questions. Anyone else questions for the mayor concerning this? Okay. Thank you.
How do you feel about a letter?
Up to you.
No, I think procedurally it's a good idea.
Did you want anyone else to speak on this? or-
No, I was just, Councilor Kwasinski has concerns that he had asked for the letter, and he might want to wait till the next to see if it comes through. I mean, again, I'd leave that up to the committee before I, make a vote.
I think my thought was procedurally, and the mayor, I think, agreed that we would seek the letter, because the funds were raised as a fundraiser at the schools. And the teachers coordinated the fundraiser. Everyone else said, we're gonna have a shelter for dogs, and we're gonna build it. It's gonna be in East Hampton. We're gonna take care of animals. And the money was raised, and it sounds like everybody's in agreement, but I think the I's should be dotted and the T's crossed, that
Right.
there should be a letter to just document that before the council says, well, we're not gonna build a shelter, but we're gonna take these funds and use them for something else, something that makes sense, I think. I would certainly agree with that, but just procedurally, I guess I would ask us to
Right.
wait,
I have
is
no-
my thinking.
And JP, I have no problem with that at all. The letter should have been as of today. And again, you know, there's no apologies needed. She was apologizing, you know, with the summer. There's no apologies needed, you know, so I said, it's fine. We didn't get it, you know, when we do, but I have no problems waiting on this and providing you with the letter, because it does also state that it's a consensus of everybody involved. So, I don't, you know.
Yeah, I'd be fine with waiting.
Okay, we could just move this over to
Okay.
the 16th. I mean, it's not in need of a public hearing anyway,
No.
so I'll just bring it
Okay.
back up at that time.
Great.
And other than that, there's a couple of finance items that are on the public hearings tonight, and other than that, finance is concluded.
Okay, thank you. We've got about 5 minutes, we can probably do one or two more. Public safety, Counselor Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we have been looking at the Paul Street extension, and we all went out and did a site visit, and we're all kind of in agreement that it doesn't even look close. So at our next meeting, which is gonna be on September 15th at 5 PM in room 1, I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about whether or not this actually needs to go back to planning. There were some concerns with the entrance to the Pisquamic Conservation Area, that, the developer, it's completely covered with dirt, there's no entrance, and one of the reasons we were asked to expedite this is so that they could put in a sign, but everybody was kind of surprised that this had been put forward for acceptance, so we're gonna have to talk about it at the next meeting and then maybe see where we're at.
Okay.
And then, the street acceptance protocol is being reviewed by the planning department at their next meeting.
Great,
Thus concludes.
thank you. Counselor Smith for appointments today, I believe.
Do you want me to open it first? Or do you want, okay.
Oh,
It doesn't matter.
okay.
Go ahead.
Appointments met today at 5:40. We had one application to review, and that was Beth Tiffany, and this was for serving on the Nashwanik Pond Steering Committee. And since she is a relative of Joy Winnie's, Joy abstained from actually voting on this, so the vote was 2-0 in affirmation of asking her to be on the board. So moving it to council, making a motion to accept Beth Tiffany to the Nashwanik Pond Committee for a term expiration of 12/31/16.
Second.
Okay, a motion a second to accept the appointment of Beth Tiffany to the Nashwanik Pond Committee, termination 12/16. Additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
abstained, motion passes. I guess we're pretty close to public hearing time, so I'll entertain a motion to open
Move
public.
we open the public hearings.
Second.
Motion a second to open public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Looks like finance to begin with, Council, please.
Yeah, I'll do a second reading on our first interdepartmental transfer. This is a request from July 29th, 2015. Requested amount is $1,295 to be transferred from the reserve fund in that amount and transferred to the ambulance maintenance agreements, to provide funds for an outstanding bill from May of 2014 for cardiac monitoring services. The chief came to the subcommittee meeting and stated that this was a bill that, when they went to re-up our services for cardiac monitors in the ambulances, they found out from Phillips Medical that they had sent out one invoice and never sent anything back out to the city, so it just was kind of a bookkeeping area that has slipped through. But if the chief wants to get up, he doesn't have to, but if he wants to get up and
I haven't been here a while, I figured you missed me. We had entered into a 2-year agreement with Philips, who is the manufacturer of one of our cardiac monitors. And in year 2, they sent one invoice 6 months in. We thought it was just a duplicate, never heard from them again, until this year or last fiscal year actually, in the spring, when we called them to renew. They said, you can't renew because you still owe us from 2014. We never got a second notice, a late notice, so we explained to them that it was going to be a long time now before they got their money. The good news is they haven't charged us any late fees because they realized that they were partly to blame in this oversight as well, so.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address the council concerning this appropriation? Okay, seeing, okay, Counselor Hagan.
There's no other question. I'll make the following motion that the East Hampton City Council approve the following interdepartmental transfer in the amount of $1,295 and transfer it from the reserve fund and transfer it into the ambulance maintenance fund for the purpose of paying a May 2014 cardiac monitoring service outstanding bill.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for the departmental transfer of $1,295 for paying outstanding bill. Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Motion passes.
Second public hearing involving finance tonight is also a supplemental appropriation. Excuse me, hang on here. Of $28,000 to purchase, it's actually, let me explain this one a little bit further. It's an interdepartmental transfer, and I'll do a second reading. But I guess I'll look a little to Counselor Riss for a rules thing. What we did here is we did amend it. We approved it both ways. The first way that we got it and amended, because what we were looking to do here is the original amount requested was $21,000. But the chief came back with after he was calling about if we could provide this stretcher, the company said if you buy 2 of them, they'll give us 2 for $28,000, and that would outfit both of our ambulances with one of these power stretchers. So the subcommittee felt that it was beneficial to the process of buying 2 at the same time. So we did want to move the amended motion first. So I guess unless we're at some type of rules problem, Dan?
No, you've read it, and I believe because we've read the original motion in the first reading at the August meeting, you should be fine because it's also been advertised.
Okay.
So we're okay. I don't know if you have to even amend it, you just have to read the final motion, because the finance committee and the mayor have an agreement having amended it, so you only have to move the final figure, I think.
Then I'll do the second reading. It's dated August 13th, 2015. The request is hereby made for the following appropriation. The amount requested is $28,000 to be transferred from the reserve fund in that amount and transferred to the ambulance capital fund for a Stryker power lift stretcher. And it's actually for 2 of them. Obviously, the purpose is to outfit both our first line ambulances with these stretchers, and I guess I would ask the fire chief or the mayor to come forward and
Thank you for accepting the amendment and also pointing out that it's 2 power lifts now. The chief came to me to bring to my attention some safety concerns and what would be his #1 capital request. And as you know, free cash is normally not certified till the October time. And so usually we don't come to you with requests until after that, but this is a capital request. We have 3 ambulances. The older of the 3, has the lift stretcher. But when the chief started looking into it, it became an issue where, he thought it was a safety concern, and anything we can do to expedite, the capital request of this. So that's why, as you notice, we're using the reserve fund instead of what we would typically probably use would be free cash. So this would, as he was checking prices by going direct to the manufacturer, that's where he was able to get this type of price. So we thought it was actually pretty exciting that instead of 1 for $21,000, by going direct through the manufacturer, we're able to get 2 of them for $28,000. So it just made sense to do them both now. The original intent was to do 1 now, just to expedite it, and then wait when free cash is certified and come back to you for the other one. So that's what this is, and that's why it's amended.
That's right.
Mayor, this was out of that new capital stabilization account that we just created this year, right?
Nope, we
this
just
is
took
gonna
this,
be from
we
the
just
regular-
took this out of regular reserve.
Regular reserve,
Yep,
okay.
yep,
So I knew it was a capital item or something.
yep.
Okay. Chief is gonna.
I wanted to make sure she speak before she passed out, Counselor. The reason this is a priority, 2 of the last 3 disability retirements have been due to back injuries for members that had less than 10 years on a job. Both of those injuries were lifting patients on stretchers. As the mayor said, we have a power lift stretcher. It's in our oldest ambulance. It was purchased new with the ambulance in 2006. Last year we spent about $700 repairing parts on it because it's old technology. These stretchers, while I look at the price and look at what a stretcher cost, it's a little inflated, I think, but it's medical equipment, they can get away with it. However, the cost to the city in overtime and retirement of 2 members with 10 years or less is probably tenfold on what these stretchers are. So I think it's needed. We don't have the manpower all the time to go with more than 2 people. We're finding larger and larger patients, a lot of elderly that are bedridden. It's extremely difficult to lift them with just 2 people. With this stretcher, you put the wheels on the back of the ambulance, you push a button, the legs come up, you wheel them out. Same thing when you're taking it out. What that does is allow both people to be on the end of the stretcher and hold it. With the current stretcher, one person is holding all the weight while the other one picks up the legs. So the person that's holding it, not only you're holding a 200-300 pound patient, but you have to be squeezing a trigger to unlock the wheels. So there's a lot going on, a lot of risk for injury. I said these new ones, you just push a button, the wheels come up. There's another model, believe it or not, this is the cheap one. It looks just like the trash truck that with the arm that grabs the trash can and throws it in. They make those for stretchers. Those are about $30,000. We didn't go for that option. We went for the regular stretchers, but I said the cost of these stretchers will be outweighed by the savings. We just had a firefighter out 3 weeks with a back injury, lifting a patient, 2 people, a large patient that was in cardiac arrest, didn't have the adequate manpower, tried lifting the weight of the patient by himself, and he was out of work for 3 weeks. Cost us a lot of overtime, so these stretchers will pay for themselves.
Any additional questions for the chief? No?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the council concerning this appropriation? Please feel free to come up. Okay. Councilor.
Make the following motion that the East Hampton City Council approve the interdepartmental transferring the amount of $28,000 from the reserve fund to the ambulance capital striker power lift stretcher
Second.
for 2.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to approve the interdepartmental transfer of $28,000 from the reserve fund for the 2 capital striker power lift stretchers. Additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Final public hearing on a finance item tonight is a supplemental appropriation, and this is the one that comes from capital stabilization. It's dated July 29th, it's the second reading. 2015, request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $45,000 to be appropriated from capital stabilization and appropriated to the Park and Rec office in that amount. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to provide funds to purchase a new office space for the Park Department. I guess Mr. Mason can come up and give us the particulars, but this is a request of $45,000. I think it's gonna be matched by funds that the Park Department also already has from fees and that of $45,000. So the total cost of this, I'll call it a modular office. Everyone should have got a packet which kind of explains it. Anybody that goes down to the park and sees what they're currently working out of, it's, I think, a need. I know that the director would probably like something fancier, but I think at least this is it'll make it safer for the employees and at least weather tight. So if Mr. Mason would like to come forward and
John Mason, Parks and Recreation. Yeah, we're kind of easy to please down there. We don't ask for big fancy things. We just try to find what's adequate. We went with this type of office setting because it's affordable. It can be done reasonably quickly before the first of the year. We could be in a new facility. In our present office trailer is pretty awful, to be honest with you. Leaks, freezes during the wintertime. It's not ideal at all. So I did a lot of research trying to come up with the best way to keep the cost down for the city. We know what kind of financial state we are in with the city. The Park and Rec Commission offered up a 50% match, so we're gonna put $45,000 into the project and have the city match it for the $90,000 total. I was doing some light reading of our 5-year plan, strategic plan back in 1998, and highlighted was building needs. Way back 17 years ago, it was identified as inadequate, lack of storage, inefficient to heat, things like that were all mentioned back in 1998. So here we are today, ready to move forward and get into something that we think 20, 25, 30 years easily out of this space, maybe more, but it definitely is a cost-effective way for us to be in a facility.
Counselor Rist?
I apologize, I missed the finance committee meeting, but for the public who might be watching, where is it gonna be built and how big is it, square footage wise, how many offices, et cetera?
It's 26 by 48, 3 offices, has reception area, conference area,
Similar to the old office in a sense?
twice the size of that.
Twice the size?
Twice the size of
That's good.
the office. So it's 1,300 square feet
Good.
of office space and storage space.
Built in the same location as the old?
Same location as
As
we're
the
in
old
right now.
one?
Yep.
You're gonna as part
That
of
one,
this-
that one's getting pulled out and gone, and
And
then
the cost includes demolition?
there's no demolition. It's you pull a tractor trailer up, you pop the wheels on it, and you pull it, and you're gone. It's a trailer.
About
It's
the
a,
very old building, not the
oh
trailer.
no, the building's staying. This is taking over the trailer where the trailer is. It's going where our office trailer is currently.
Oh, okay.
We can't that we turned into the shop. That old office is strictly, where my office was when I first got here, and Ed's for a number of years is the tool shed area now, and then you'll
So
have.
you're using it though?
Yeah, they're using it for maintenance, yes, to bring in some of the equipment that used to be stored outside, so.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Winnie?
So this is a stick build, ground up?
No, it's prefab,
Okay,
modular.
That's what I
yeah.
thought, modular.
okay, so it's
Prefab
prefab
Yeah,
modular?
2-piece, yep.
Do you have to pour a footing or a
Yep,
slab
yep,
or something
exactly,
you're gonna put it on?
exactly, yep,
And heating is gonna be,
propane,
okay, forced hot air?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Excellent.
Additional questions for?
Just one.
Oh, say again.
And the matching funds comes from the Richmond Fund?
Yes,
Is that
correct,
one of
yep,
the- Right,
yep.
that's one of the funds you have that.
Yep.
I believe that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mason.
Fantastic, thank you.
If there anyone else from the public who would like to address the council concerning this appropriation, please come up. Okay, not seeing any. Counselor Hagan.
I'll make the following motion that DCM, the city council approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $45,000 that it be appropriated from capital stabilization and appropriated to the Park and Rec office to purchase a new office space for the park department.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second for supplemental appropriation of $45,000 from capital stabilization for Park Rec Office. Additional comment?
Quick comment. I just wanted to say, we kind of passed over the Barbara Richmond Fund. We're talking about a modest investment to gain a lot of office space. And this money, I'd like to say thank you again, was donated by a woman who left her much of her estate, a house I believe it was, that was sold, and the resources were available to the community for the purposes of recreation. We're very grateful that we're able to do it, and I think this need has been long overdue, and I'm happy to say we're ready to roll on it.
Any additional comments, questions? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion passes.
That's it for finance, so public hearings.
Okay, Counselor Derby.
So the first public hearing that we have is for our fire code. And recently the state changed the name when they adopted a model national fire code. And so now our local fire code ordinance doesn't match the new name for the state. So this is to change the name in our local ordinance to match the state's.
Chief Monitor, do you want to speak any more to that first?
I think Counselor Derby covered it. It may throw him on the payroll and fire prevention. Previously, Massachusetts created its own homegrown fire code, known as 527 CMR, and with subsections 1 through 50-something. They finally decided that there's an easier way to do business. The National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, writes national consensus standards accepted all over the world. They're headquartered right here in Quincy, Massachusetts, but Massachusetts wouldn't adopt it. So recently, they adopted it. The only thing that's changed is the name. So when we issue citations, instead of it being 527 CMR Section 4, it's now 527 CMR 1, and then there's sections 1 through whatever. The code hasn't changed. They just changed the name. They accepted a model code, and in true Massachusetts fashion, we have Massachusetts amendments that are this thick to the code. But they just changed the name. Nothing in it has changed other than the name.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the chief? No? Okay, thanks. Anyone from the public who would like to address the council concerning this ordinance changing? No. Okay, Councilor Derby.
So just to let everybody know that we did vote 3-0 to approve this, and that was on the 24th of June. So I would like to move to amend the city ordinances, Chapter 6, Section 6-15 and 6-18 by replacing the existing wording of 527 CMR with 527 CMR 1.00.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to change the fire code from 527 CMR to 527 CMR 1.00. Additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes.
Okay, so the next one that we have was a request that was sent to us from the CPA committee. And this is a request to change some of the wording in the CPA ordinance to reflect some of the changes that happened in 214 that loosened some of the regulations. And so everybody should have gotten a copy of this packet, but it has changes that are highlighted in it around how we can use CPA funds. And you know, some of them have to do with recreation, some of them are how deed restrictions are placed. But we did go through this and we did vote 3-0 to approve this. And it was requested and supported by the CPA committee. I believe it was 7-0 was supported.
City planner, Assistant Webb, do you want to comment on this, or is there anyone else from CPA who, no? Okay, maybe.
So as Councilor Derby stated, the committee did vote to move this amendment request along. Really, it just brings the city's ordinance into alignment with the state ordinance. And as he stated, the loosening of the regulations for how CPA money can be spent, specifically in regard to recreation projects and what sort of how permanent property is supposed to be recorded when the city purchases land. And all of this is in the state law, so it's just bringing the two ordinances into alignment.
Okay. A question, Hayden?
Just as the city council representative of CPI, I just want to thank Jamie because Jamie had to kind of push the committee along at several meetings to get this all approved, the language, but as I said, it was more of a, just bring us in compliance, or I won't say compliance, but in a parallel with what's in the state ordinance anyway. I appreciate the work on it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Councilor Hayes?
How is it less restrictive?
It is highlighted in the packet that you should have gotten on June 1st, but you know, just an example, one of the things it allows for community preservation, it allows including the consideration of regional projects for community preservation as opposed to just local. So that was one of the changes. Another one was that it would be allowed for the rehabilitation and restoration of historic resources rather than just the preservation. So those are just a couple of the smaller ones.
Okay. Any additional questions for Jamie? Okay, thank you very much. Back to Councilor. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public who would like to address council concerning this topic? No. Councilor Derby?
So just again, this was voted 3-0 by our committee to move forward. And I move to amend the city ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 8, Section 2-72, Community Preservation Committee, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee on May 21st, 2015, and as shown in the document given to the City Council dated May 28th, 2015.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the changes to CPA ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 8, Section 2-72, Additional comments or questions on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Okay, and our last one was easy for us as a committee, and I wish we could have done it quicker. We did try to work with the planning board to get it done fairly quick, but this is a request to rezone 119 to 121 Main Street from R5 to downtown business. It had been changed from downtown business to R5 at a previous time. The property card never got updated. The petitioners went to start a business there under the impression from the property card that it was downtown business, to find out that it was not. And so we met with the planning board, and the planning board recommended that we change it. Our committee recommended that we change it. So here we are.
Okay. Is there anyone from the city who would like to speak to, let me, the city first about this? Okay, not anyone from the public, would you like to comment, or are you?
Thank you so much for helping us streamline this, and if anyone wants to come get haircuts, be at 191 or 119 through 121 Main Street.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Hickman?
This property borders the downtown business, right? So
It's
it's
right
not
on the
like,
edge.
I mean, it's not like, yeah, I remember that when we talked.
It's right on the edge, and I believe the original change was because they wanted to put apartments down on the ground floor, which they couldn't do
Right,
in
there's
downtown
one here.
business. And so, yeah.
I was, did we do this somewhat recently? Because I almost remember doing a little cutout when we were on council.
2009.
2000, yeah, I
2009.
remember making that cutout, and it
It
was
was.
never done, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Great, any additional comments or questions before
Okay.
Councilor Derby makes a motion?
This was recommended 3-0 by our
Okay.
committee. I move to amend the city zoning map by changing the zoning of 119 through 121 Main Street in its entirety from R5 residential urban to downtown business.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second to change the zoning from 119, 121 Main Street from R5 to downtown business. Any additional questions, comments?
Just one, no other abutters came forward like proposing anything.
Nope.
Fine.
Okay. Councilor Kozinski?
As one who relies on property cards as a business in real estate, may I extend our apologies as a city, as a community, that someone would go ahead and rely on the property cards to come to find out that it may not be the case, and then to be held up so long. I apologize.
I pull a lot of property cards from many, many different, areas of
And
Western
thank-
Mass and Central Mass, and they're not always up to date. It happens.
Thank you so much for your patience.
No, thank you for helping us streamline this.
Any other questions or comments concerning this? Okay, Councilor Derby.
He made it.
Oh, you
I
made
think
the
I
motion,
made the
okay,
motion.
sorry, all right. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Move the public hearing to be closed.
Okay,
Second.
a motion is second to close public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. I think we were left at ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Goody, back to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things, just housekeeping, I'd like to do is I'd like to request a 90-day extension on our the review of zoning, the sign ordinance. And just for clarification, we are working with Jessica to, as we slowly move through the sign ordinance, as we find inconsistencies, keeping this on the agenda so we can fix them as they come up. And so since we've been busy with other zoning things, we haven't really gotten to really dig into the sign ordinance as much as we'd like to, but I'd like to keep it on the agenda. I would like now to set a public hearing.
Did you want the motion for the?
Oh,
90?
yeah, I should probably do that, shouldn't I? Okay, I'd like to move for a 90-day extension on the review of zoning ordinance 10.0 signs.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for 90-day extension for section 10.0 signs. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Okay, now I would like to request a public hearing for September 16th at 6:15 in these chambers to review the request to amend zoning ordinance regarding home occupations.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to set a public hearing for September 16th, topic being request to amend zoning ordinances, especially home occupations. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And I'm not setting our next meeting, but I'm going to put out that I'm going to try to hold it on September 23rd at 6 p.m. But I'm gonna confirm that with my fellow members and Barbara before I put it out there, but that's what we're shooting for.
And then be posted, obviously, in 48 hours.
Yes.
23rd, you have another meeting
The
yet,
next
so.
meeting anyway.
Yeah, it's not until after the next
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, this, I guess I've referred to Dan on this, but I did set the public hearing on the home occupations, but we are at the
You don't
deadline.
have to, you're gonna report it out at the next meeting. We're
That's
good.
what I figured. Okay, that concludes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Property, Counselor Ziegler.
We have set our next property subcommittee meeting for September 6th, or excuse me, September 16th at 5:30, and location to be determined, and that concludes. Oh, I'm sorry, the purpose of that meeting is to discuss the easement request for 15 Cottage Street pedestrian bridge.
Okay, so thank you. And concerning the old business, the mayor and I have been talking, we are still assembling, getting applications for people. I think we both, this is an important subject that needs to be handled thoughtfully and sensitively. So, we're not gonna rush to grabbing people. We're gonna take our time and make sure we have a list of people who wanna participate. So I can't give you a date that we will be naming it, but we are assembling people, so. So at that moment, that's, I guess, the meeting, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
A motion second adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?